Did you know that one of the most important things that can determine your success as a writer is not just your talent, it's not just your experience, and it's more than even your ability or your commitment to hard work? It's something that so many writers overlook and that many kingdom writers in particular miss. It is your writing voice. And so few kingdom writers even know what it is, much less how to harness it. In today's video, you'll discover what your writing voice is, why it's so important, what things can distort or just kind of mess with your writing voice, and how to discover or rediscover your writing voice in the future. Hey, y'all, welcome to today's Live with Lisa. If you're new here, my name is Lisa, and I create videos that help you learn how to write and live God's way. If you want to honor God with both your life and your writing, this is the place for you. I also want you to know that we go live every week here in partnership with Our Given Purpose Ministries, which is an incredible ministry founded by my dear friend, Tori Slaughter, to help you grow and mature in your walk with God and get connected to godly community. So not only do we go live every week here in partnership with Our Given Purpose on YouTube and on Instagram, but on the Our Given Purpose Facebook Ministries page as well. So make sure you get connected there and learn more about that incredible ministry. So as I said, we're talking today about your writing voice. And it's one of those things that I think is really underappreciated in terms of many of us as writers. We don't really understand what voice is and why it matters. And I think so many people miss a really important opportunity in terms of your knowing what your voice is and how to use it effectively. Voice in many ways is like your superpower as a writer. It is so valuable, so important. Everyone has one, and it's something that you can really refine and grow into and develop over time. But you have to understand what it is and how it works. And so let's get into what that really means and what that looks like. So, what is your writing voice? Your writing voice essentially is like your personality as a writer. It is what distinguishes you from other writers. It helps you, it's almost like your fingerprint. It's your writing fingerprint in many ways. And I believe writing voice is, in many ways, the thing that separates good writers from great ones. It is the thing that makes the difference between people reading your writing versus remembering it. Okay, let me say that again. Your writing voice is what makes the difference between your writing just being readable and it being memorable. When you're able to refine and hone your writing voice and you understand what makes you unique as a writer and what really gives you that personality as a writer, it makes all the difference in your writing being memorable. It makes all the difference in your writing being different and being distinguished from other types of writing. If you think about it, when you think about your favorite authors, for example, right? If you look at someone like, Toni Morrison or a William Faulkner, right? Or a Mark Twain or a Frank Peretti or a C.S. Lewis, right? These are some of the greatest writing minds in history, right? And what do we know about them? If you look at a piece that's written by each of these individual authors, many of you would be able to identify which author that was and which person wrote that particular piece without even knowing the title of the work, right? You may not know necessarily exactly which one it was. You might not get it right all the time. But if you looked at enough pieces, and you've read, especially if you're familiar with certain authors, you get to understand their style. You get to understand the way that they put words together. You understand that they might use certain metaphors, that they might have a certain way of their words flowing, right? I like to use Toni Morrison as an example, that she has a very musical style of writing. Her words and the way that she describes things, it literally kind of feels like music in a way. There's just a rhythm to it that's really interesting, right? And every writer has things like that. They have certain traits and certain styles and methods of writing that are unique to them and that they use in certain ways. It's like a toolbox. And every writer uses different tools, right? It's kind of like as a painter, how every painter might paint with certain colors. They might have different colors that they like more than others, and they might tend to use certain colors more in their work. It's similar with writing. So your writing voice can include things like rhythm. It can include diction, right? The way that you put words together, the types of patterns in your sentence structures. It really includes your overall style as a writer, what makes your writing unique. And, again, it's unique to each writer. We all have certain things that we tend to do with our writing, certain patterns that we tend to have with how we put words together, and certain images that we might tend to rely on, things like that. And so that is how your writing voice works. It is specific to each of us. And, different writing voices might be similar, but they tend not to be the same, especially if you are aware of your writing voice and you have worked to refine it and develop it over time. You'll find that you will become less and less like other writers that you know of and more clear on what your writing voice is as you work to develop it. So let's go into some comments here. Let's see. All right. Tori says, I love this topic. Awesome. I'm so glad you can relate. And I hope that it is helpful for people because again, I think writing voice is one of those things that tends to be kind of underestimated, underappreciated in terms of its real value and importance to a lot of writers. And then Tori says, so true. There are great writers who have made significant impact because of their unique styles. Yes, absolutely. So many writers in history that we can look to and think about in terms of, even them changing their genres based on their unique writing style and things that they did differently. For example, if you have a writer that is very stream of consciousness with their writing, right? And there's kind of this interesting flow to the events of the novel or the way that they write certain characters, right? It might be something that we hadn't seen before that particular writer did it. And then we start to see other writers do the same thing afterwards, right? And so that's absolutely something that makes, different types of writing and different authors very memorable because they are able to do something unique through their writing style that makes their work really interesting and stands out in many ways to many of us, right? All right. And so the next thing you need to understand about your writing voice is that there are certain things that can cause you to lose your writing voice if you're not careful. Something you need to be aware of because honestly, many of us, we either can lose our writing voice or it keeps us from identifying what our voice really sounds like. Honestly, I feel like this is something that can apply to just life in general, right? Outside of just writing itself. But let's dive into this. So the first thing that can cause you to lose your writing voice or to have trouble finding it in the first place is trauma and life situations. Trauma and life situations. There's all kinds of things that we go through in our everyday lives that are just hard. Things like a job loss, the loss of a loved one, health issues in our bodies, right? Financial challenges, just issues in relationships and with family. There's all kinds of struggles that we deal with, childhood trauma, right? Things from when we were young. So there's all kinds of things that can happen that affect us in ways that we weren't anticipating. And there can be levels to that trauma. And so that trauma not only can affect our personal voice, right? Our ability to express ourselves, to articulate our needs, to really explain and to what we're looking for and communicate our ability to ask for help. But it can also affect our writing voice as well. When we have a difficult time expressing what we need or asking for help or being able to articulate things that we're dealing with, it can affect our ability to be articulate in our writing as well, our ability to communicate in general. And so when we've been through traumatic things, it really affects how we are able to communicate and how we're able to put words together, how we're able to convey imagery to our readers. It really can affect us on some pretty deep levels that where we may not be aware of. Now, to be clear, I'm not a psychologist or a counselor or anything like that, so I can't get into all of the nuances of that. But that's why counseling can be really important and helpful, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. But put it, just think about that in terms of your ability to find your writing voice or even to reclaim it as it has been lost. That trauma can really get in the way of us being able to express ourselves well in our writing. Tori says, yes, trauma and she says, woo, yes, trauma and life situations will change our voice. Absolutely. And it happens in really subtle ways that we're not even really aware of. It can cause a lot of confusion, but it can also distort our voice to where we see our writing and we see, characters and plot and different things we're trying to communicate, we see it through the lens of our trauma to where it makes us less effective in communicating than we might be if we had dealt with those issues. All right. Second thing that can get in the way or cause us to lose our writing voice is spiritual struggles or a lack of connection with God. Spiritual struggles. This is really important for us to understand as kingdom writers. So necessary. When we are experiencing a disconnect from God in our relationship with God, whether because of sin or just because we are wrestling with some things and, hesitating to come to God to really process those things with him, it can actually affect our writing voice because writing in so many ways, we as kingdom writers, we rely on the Holy Spirit. We are working in partnership with the Holy Spirit to be able to produce work for the glory of God. And so if we're not in connection with God, if we're not able to hear him clearly and we're not able to respond and adjust when we need to and really respond to his instructions, that's a huge barrier that gets in the way of us developing our craft and even being able to finish things, right? I've experienced this in my own life where I had so much writer's block. I had so many issues producing writing and content that I wanted to produce, and my heart was there. I had the heart to do that. But because my relationship with God was not really strong and not really stable because of things I was dealing with over many years, it made it so hard for me to really write effectively and write consistently. And for so long, I thought that it was just connected to, I have a history with depression. And so I thought it was just about that. And it was to a certain extent. But it was also, I believe, in many ways connected to my kind of shaky faith and me not really being as in tune with what the Lord was saying as I could have been. And so it really affected my writing in ways that I didn't understand for many years until later, really, when the Lord had kind of healed me in a lot of ways. And I was on the other side of that. I started to really look back and see how my disconnection with God, how my weak faith and how my struggles in my walk with God were actually affecting my ability to be creative for him. Again, really subtle how this happens. And it's important for us to be aware that our relationship with God has a profound impact in our ability to create effectively for him. So really important for you to be aware of that and think about that as a possibility. All right. Tori says, this is therapeutic. Sometimes recognizing what is or has happened helps to bring clarity as well as knowing how to pray for healing. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Absolutely, Tori. Thank you so much. That's exactly where, and again, it's one of those things that it's easy for us to miss, right? We know something's wrong, but we can't identify why. And so we have to think through what are some things that could be causing the blockage? What are some things that could be causing the frustration? And is this a physical issue? Is this an emotional issue? Or is this a spiritual issue? Or in many cases, is it a combination of many issues? And then we have to take steps to address each of those issues as we identify them. So yeah, really, really important that we are looking into that in order to find that healing to be able to move forward. And then the last thing that can cause you to lose your writing voice or keep you from developing it is comparison. This is a big one. Comparison is huge in terms of really blocking our ability to discover our own writing voice and to be able to produce effectively. I did a whole live stream talking about how to escape the comparison trap and how to write with confidence. So I really encourage you to go back and watch that live stream because I believe it will bless you in terms of helping you to identify what it looks like to identify comparison in your own life, how to recognize when it's there, and how to root it out when you discover it. Because not only can comparison cause us a lot of just pain and frustration and even depression if it goes unchecked, but it can also affect our ability to identify our writing voice and to really be confident in it because we're so busy looking at other people around us and possibly being jealous or envious of them and even trying to imitate them. This was something that I dealt with early in my writing journey as well. For many years, I tried to imitate some of the successful writers that I admired and that I wanted to be like. And so I would try to model my style after them and try to, follow the same habits that they had. And there's to a certain extent, there's some of that happens early in the writing process when, especially if you're brand new to writing, some of that can happen and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But it's important to not stay there. It's important not to stay in the place of really imitating other writers and trying to be like them. God made you unique and there is only one you. And so it's important for you to eventually get to the space of identifying what your unique gifts and talents and strengths are as a writer and to really work with the Holy Spirit to walk that out and to flow in that as you grow in your writing craft. And so, but you can't do that if you're spending all your time trying to be like other people. God is not going to help you become a copy of someone else. I'm going to say that again. God is not going to help you become a copy of someone else. He doesn't make duplicates. He is only going to help you become the you that he has designed you to be. And so we have to be aware of that and mindful of that. When we're tempted to fall into comparison, understand that we are working against God and against his will for our lives when we are trying to walk in that and trying to operate in that. So really important. All right. And thank you so much, Tori. That is the link to that live stream talking about escaping the comparison trap. So definitely check that out. That will bless you. All right, so we have identified what our writing voice is, and we've identified things that can get in the way of us developing our writing voice and how to recover it if we've lost it. Now let's talk about what are the steps that can help us find or rediscover our writing voice. Let's talk about what those are. The first thing you want to do is to ask God for clarity about who you are. Who is it that he has uniquely made you to be as a writer? Jeremiah 1 verse 5 is God talking to Jeremiah, the prophet. And he says, before you were in your mother's womb, I knew you. I appointed you to be a prophet to the nations. And so God is letting us know there that before we were even born, he knew who we were. He knew what he had planned for us, and he had already established certain things for us to do. And he had designed us a certain way. He had designed us with a certain temperament. He had designed us with certain gifts. He had designed us to operate in a certain way. And so when we need clarity about who we are and how we should operate, who better to go to than our creator? Who better to go to than the one who fashioned us and formed us in our mother's womb? And so we need to be intentional about that. It may seem obvious to some of you. It may be something that you might have thought was a little bit too deep or what have you. But I really encourage you to go to God in prayer and ask him what it is that how he has made you, how he has formed you as a writer. What are your strengths and your weaknesses? What are the things about you that make you unique as a writer? Ask him. And I believe that he will answer you and that he will give you the knowledge and insight that you're looking for about that. So definitely do that. That's your first step. The second step is to seek Christian-based therapy and counseling to help you process your trauma. To seek out Christian-based therapy and counseling to help you process your trauma. Again, this is key. We talked about this earlier. We talked about how trauma can get in the way of helping us to develop our writing voice and to operate in it effectively. And so on the flip side of that, going through counseling and therapy with a trusted counselor can really help us to work through those issues that are getting in the way of us finding our writing voice and finding our voice in general. When we understand where we've been hurt, how we've been wounded, and we begin to heal from that, that helps us to become clear about what we need to do, who we are, and how God has designed us. We have to heal from those things from our past that have hurt us and caused us pain in order to walk out in wholeness and just health the way that we can and operate at our full potential. So you want to be intentional about doing that. Counseling and therapy it's not a quick fix. It is not the cure for everything. But I believe it is a really critical piece in helping us walk out our healing and be more effective in every area of our lives, not even just with our writing. So I'm always a big advocate for counseling and for therapy as part of your journey to become the best writer that you can be. All right. Tori says, trauma gets in the way of so many things, as you pointed to earlier. This is a life lesson. Thank you for leaning into this. Amen, Tori. I'm so glad that that is helpful and encouraging, and just in terms of life lessons, to God be the glory, because I really believe that this is something that he is wanting us to heal from and to grow in, so we become more effective for him. Amen. All right. And then the next thing we need to do is to make sure we're writing consistently. Write consistently. That is a really a key way for you to develop your voice as a writer. There is something about just getting the experience and putting down the words, putting those reps in, trial and error, trying different styles, trying different ideas and methods, and trying different techniques. Again, we talked earlier about how we can get in trouble if we try, too much to imitate other writers. But when you're in the process of learning, and especially in those early stages when you're brand new, there can be some value in trying different writing styles and imitating other writers in your own kind of private writing, right? We don't want to publish things that are in the same style as someone else. But when you're working through that process and you're developing and you're trying to find your writing style and your writing voice, it can be helpful to do some exercises of kind of comparing different writing styles and practicing with them and seeing where what works best for you, and trying different techniques and putting different things together to see what works well for you. There's a lot of value in doing that, but it takes time. It's not something where you wake up one day and you write a couple pages and ta-da, your writing voice, right? This is something that tends to take years to develop over time as you consistently write. And so, again, the key word is consistently. You don't want to just write one day and then not write again for a year or longer, right? You want to do it gradually over time, even if it's a few words here and there every day. But make sure you're sticking with that and you're working at it over time. That's really going to help you. The next thing you want to do is to read consistently and to examine other writing styles. This is the other side of that, right? We don't want to just write consistently and try out different writing styles, but we want to read as well and think about different writing styles and compare different authors, compare and contrast, and really ask yourself as you're reading, what is it that I like about this particular writer? What don't I necessarily like as much? What are some things I can learn from this writer? What are some things that I can do differently as it relates to my own work? And just really thinking through that critically, and examining your own writing work as it relates to other authors that you're reading. You can learn so much from writing and from reading the work of other authors and really just growing in that and growing in your knowledge of many different types of writing. I really encourage writers to do that at every phase of the writing journey. There's really never a point where you outgrow, the need to write consistently and read consistently. That's going to always be there. And there's so much that you can learn from other writers and from reading a variety of different types of writing. Don't just read fiction. Don't just read nonfiction, but read both. And don't just read one particular genre of writing, but read a lot of different genres. There is so much value in exposing yourself to a lot of different types of writing from a lot of different types of authors. The more you know, the more tools you have in your tool belt. And it's really going to help you as a writer in terms of developing your craft. All right, let's see. Yes, Tori says yes to reading and writing a variety. Yes, there is so much value in that. Again, going back to the painting analogy, imagine if you only painted with two colors, right? You can definitely do that. There's certain styles where you can do that. And certain painters definitely, might use more black and white and things like that. But many painters are going to use a variety of different colors, right? And they are going to try out different colors and do different things with different colors because you have so many options available to you. And it's a similar principle with writing. There are so many different types of books and so many different ideas that we have access to in the world today. It's really a blessing that we are alive at this point in time to really have so many different types of writing to choose from. And so definitely take advantage of that and really, explore and consider different styles and think about how you can develop your own work as a result. That will be helpful to you. And then lastly, you want to make sure to critique other people's writing. That's going to be the last way to develop and really discover your writing voice or rediscover it is you need to critique other people's writing. There is something that happens when you go through the process of not only reading other people's writing and working on your own writing, but really critiquing other people's writing as well, specifically in a writing group. When you look at other writing styles of people and you learn about their writing styles, it really helps you to better understand your own. And there's something about the process of going through someone's work and really identifying the strengths and weaknesses of it that will help you build that writing muscle and help you to develop what your own strengths and weaknesses are and get better at refining them. And so I really advocate for people to get involved in a good writing group if you can, and to really start developing those ideas and working on those strategies and really thinking through what it looks like to critique other people's writing effectively. I did a live stream not too long ago talking about how to critique other people's writing effectively, how to show support in a writing community, and also how to receive feedback on your writing effectively. And so make sure you go back and watch those two live streams because those will really help you as well, not only in terms of how to become a better writer, but also just to participate in a writing community well, and just to grow in that particular area. So definitely go back and watch those. All right. So I pray that this video was helpful for you today, that it encouraged you, that it blessed you in terms of how to find your own writing voice and how to rediscover it if you feel like you've lost it. I want to encourage you that if you're struggling to figure out what makes you unique as a writer, if you don't really know or are having trouble identifying what your unique writing strengths are, I want to encourage you not to give up, but continue to keep going forward, to continue to press on and just stay persistent and stay consistent in the process of writing. There is absolutely hope for you. And if you are willing to put in the time and the energy to pursue that, I promise you there are so many blessings on the other side of that for you in your writing process. If you know who you are as a writer and you know your identity as a writer and you know how God has specifically formed and fashioned you, it gives you so much confidence. It gives you so much courage to be able to move forward and to write well, to write effectively, and to be even more productive and fruitful as a writer. So I want to encourage you to put in that effort to really figure out who you are, to ask God how He made you, because there's so much good that can come out of it when you know who you are, when you're confident in who you are, and you are able to walk forward in who you are, just boldly and effectively. All right. Thank you so much, Tori, for sharing that link. Yes, that is the link to the live stream talking about what it looks like to write in community. So definitely check that out. That will bless you. All right. So thank you. I want to thank y'all so much for joining me today, whether you are watching live or on the replay. Thank you so much for being here. If this video was helpful for you today and you want to learn more about how to write and live God's way, let's make this a regular thing. Make sure you subscribe and share this video with someone who could use some encouragement in their writing journey. And I would definitely love for you to leave a comment below, letting me know what you're working on. What projects are you working on? What are your struggles in your writing journey, and what questions you have about the writing process and how to write God's way. I would love to help in any way I can. All right, that's it for today. Thank you so much again for being here. I will see you next week in the next Live with Lisa. And until next time, take care and God bless. Happy writing, y'all.